Well, unfortunately, today we are returning with a sad but slightly inevitable one-off special. It will be a short video just to reflect on the fact that Sheffield Wednesday have been placed into administration and automatically deducted 12 points in the EFL Championship. As of now, they are on to -6 at the bottom of the table. Of course, safety looked like it was an impossible task at the start of the season, but impossible has now become just unattainable completely. So we're going to talk a little bit about how it's happened and what it means now, and of course the fan response that has come out in the last hour or two since. But we knew from the start of the season, and probably from the back end of last year, there were big problems at Sheffield Wednesday, from no signings coming in January when the club were in a playoff push with Danny Rowell at the helm, to what happened in the summer with him leaving, all of the players going, the fact that they couldn't fulfill some pre-season fixtures. They appointed the assistant as manager and just about scraped together an 11 and a squad for the start of the championship season. After, to be fair, being slightly more competitive on the pitch than we expected so far, despite the fact they are still bottom prior to the points deduction. The main talking point and story of Sheffield Wednesday this season has unfortunately been off the pitch, where unpaid wages for months and months and months, problems with staffing and etc. have caused big problems. Players being able to leave because their contracts have been breached, and then several others that were left to the last minute before sorting themselves out for the season. Once all of that had sort of dried up a little and the season had started, we got to the next big issue, which was the winding up petition from HMRC. And as soon as that started to come, we knew that this was going to be inevitable, because the owner Chansiri had been hanging on for as long as possible, but he can't do it anymore. The HMRC winding up petition means the club's existence was under threat. So now they are entered into administration, and there are 3 joint administrators coming into the club, which now will maybe even be a relief for Sheffield Wednesday fans rather than a major concern, because of course at this stage there's always that worry of finding a suitable buyer and being able to save the club. But I don't think there's going to be no takers for Sheffield Wednesday. It's a ginormous club, it's got a huge history, and it could potentially have a huge future. But there is also that risk in this situation that because you're so desperate to just get someone in, or because you need someone before the club's going to go under to fund it, then at that point, unfortunately, you sometimes get the only person that's available. It might not always be the best person. What we do know, though, is that this sort of marks the beginning of the end for the Chansiri era, which for most Sheffield Wednesday fans will be an absolute blessing. We've talked about it even from a footballing point of view over our years covering the Championship on this podcast. Chansiri is a man who has shot himself in the foot with footballing and non-footballing decisions. You go back to the previous time in the Championship, you go back to after the promotion with Darren Moore, the Cisco fiasco, the press conference, then being saved by Danny Rowell, and then making a mess of having him there and putting you in a playoff push as well. He's just not made good decisions consistently and has always held himself back and the club back when they've got into certain positions. And of course, what's happened over the last 6 to 8 months has been a disaster, and in many cases, a complete disregard for financial obligations. So with the owner no longer willing to fund the club and the club into administration, the positive for Sheffield Wednesday is that they can now look forward, because Chansiri is not going to be there anymore. But they still need an owner to come in and it to be the right person. And there's always that 50-50 risk in this situation. I've seen it several times in my lifetime as a Luton fan, let me tell you that. Of course, the big negative when it comes to the administration is a points deduction, and the fact that for Sheffield Wednesday, it essentially means there is little to no chance of surviving this year. They are 15 points from safety, which at the moment is ironically their city rival Sheffield United. But I don't think that that's really the thing Wednesday fans are worried about at the moment, because ultimately the club was going in one direction. I think prior to the season, if you'd have offered Sheffield Wednesday fans, look, we're probably going to go down anyway, but at the end of the season, we can have stable ownership and no Chansiri, I think most fans would have accepted League One football for that. And that's likely to be the club's position come the end of this season. If they can get a great owner in, throw some money at it in January, then possibly there's a chance. But looking at the amount in debt and the significant loss the club is running at, that seems an unlikely scenario at the moment. But as we've said before, it's not the be-all and end-all. Having a club to go and support next season, having a club that's stable in League One is more important than having a club that survives this season and then ends up back in this same cycle a couple of years later. But it does lead to one massive question, because Obviously, the administrators have made a very lengthy statement talking about what this means moving forward, and they've talked a lot about the fan boycott, which we've seen for much of this year. Away crowds, absolutely magnificent. Home fans, almost non-existent, as they try to stop supporting Chansiri and any money he could take out of the club. And what that has led to is a situation where it's very difficult for Sheffield Wednesday at home. And on the pitch, it's an impossible task because you're basically the away team. And off the pitch, there's obviously not a lot of money coming into the club, which will worsen the financial situation in the short term. But the administrators have essentially pleaded now, look, Chansiri has put the club in administration. He's no longer in charge. Any money that comes in will stay in. So get back into the ground, get your tickets, get your pies, get your programmes, get yourselves a drink, and make sure that you support this club and get us back to where we belong. And where they belong at the moment is needing a stable future. And that's something that I'm sure the Sheffield Wednesday fans will respond to. And with a game at home tomorrow against Oxford United, that is on paper one of the more winnable ones in the division. Oxford's away record since they came up a year and a half ago has been dreadful. And to be fair, apart from one performance at Bristol City earlier this year, they've not looked like changing that in recent weeks either. They're also a side that Sheffield Wednesday ironically could have gone level on points with at the weekend had they not had the points deduction. But it could be a real feel-good factor, and I would not be surprised at all if Sheffield Wednesday were able to get a big crowd in and then go and win that game tomorrow, because I'd already predicted them to get a result, a draw out of it. I think the 12th man could push them on, to use the old cliche. But the one positive thing that has come out of the administration and a statement is that with the right ownership structure, they believe the club has a bright future and can meet all of the obligations they need to avoid incurring any further penalties at the club. And as I mentioned before, there will be a lot of takers out for this club. It's just whether they can get the right deal with someone who's going to provide that stable and secure future. The fans group have obviously responded as well, and that's a real positive for the administrators and for the club and for the players, of course. The boycott is over, is basically the headline from the fan group. Communications are going out. They want to reverse the boycott situation, and they want to try and get a bumper crowd in tomorrow. Obviously hard, given the situation with not many getting season tickets and whatever else. And you would imagine that situation is going to change now. There'll be some sort of deal come up with. But it does mean that Sheffield Wednesday can start to look forward now. And maybe for the next couple of months, while the administration work's happening in the background and a new owner is found, they can just focus on supporting a football team again, which for a lot of clubs, when you've been through those financial troubles, as I mentioned, we did a lot of the 2000s with Luton, to be able to just then focus on supporting a football team for a year or two is absolutely lovely. And look, Sheffield Wednesday, while they've not got to this level, they have had constant turmoil and ups and downs over the last 10 years. And to be able to now have a little bit of stability and a little bit of enjoyment in their football team again, I'm sure will give them an awful lot of pride. And let's be fair, the players, while incredibly limited in terms of squad size, squad balance, depth, in terms of we've seen what they put out in the League Cup, where some of the young players have done fantastically well. But the fact that they're just having to fight as hard as they can, the fact they're still putting in spirited performances, and bar one or two against top sides, have kept most games very close and very competitive. It's a proud time to be a Sheffield Wednesday fan, even in a difficult moment on the pitch. And I'm sure they'll be eagerly awaiting the news of an owner coming in. But hopefully it will be stability for them. Be very interesting to see what happens with the assistant manager that now became the manager in Henrik Pedersen after that, because he's done okay at the start of the season. But with that small squad, is he going to get the chance to build? Will new ownership want to bring in their own players? It'll be very interesting to see. But for now, Sheffield Wednesday have entered administration. That is the key news from today. They go on to -6 points in a championship, 15 from safety. And with Oxford at home tomorrow, the fan boycott is over. And you can expect to see a bumper crowd at Hillsborough as fans flock to get tickets. I'd be really interested if you're a Sheffield Wednesday fan, what your thoughts are on this. And if you're a fan of another EFL club or non-league club that have had these troubles before. Because like I've seen both sides of this situation before, where you can get the wrong owner in and then you're back in that situation a year later, or you sometimes get in a great owner and things can go up and you can build again slowly in the future. Are you confident Sheffield Wednesday will find that stability, or are you still concerned for now? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you haven't already, check out our predictions for this weekend's championship action. We do so every match week on the podcast. Those are up in the eye above. And of course, as I said, I predicted a draw for Sheffield Wednesday, but I would not be shocked to see a home victory now. Let us know what you think the score will be. Come and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, turn that notification bell on for plenty more championship predictions, manager specials and one-offs too. A quick plug as well, that FM26 is out, and over on our gaming channels on both YouTube and Twitch, we're playing plenty of that and having football chat too. So come and join us over there. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again the middle of next week when we look ahead to match week 13 in the EFL Championship. Sheffield Wednesday can now look to the future.